can you just sort of talk about like, how did this happen? I mean, I assume it was an audition.
Yeah, so well, it's quite a funny story. I was doing a show called Vigil here in the UK, which has done very well in the States as well. But it was by the makers of Line of Duty and The Bodyguard. And at the read-through of Vigil, the producers saw me and knew that they were going to have to make Karen Pirie quite soon after. And they saw me and they were like, "Oh, she'd be good. Let's take a look at her." And so then about months, I didn't know that happened. They told me that once I got the part. But months later, I got an audition through just by my agent and saying they'd really like to audition for it. And I knew there weren't many people that would be able to do the part. And I knew they weren't looking at loads of people. They auditioned lots of people, but I knew that there was sort of, I had a foot in the door, maybe a little bit of someone that could do it. And then I didn't hear anything for ages, and I kind of forgot about it and was like, oh, well. And then at Christmas time, 2020, I got a call from my agent saying, "What's your availability like in the next few weeks?" And I was like, "Why?" And he said, "Because Karen Pirie want to recall you." And I was like, "Oh my God, okay." And he was like, "Those are some of the best tapes you've ever done." So anyway, we went through all the lines of auditioning and did another round, met the director, all that sort of thing. And then I didn't hear that week. They kept asking funny questions about like my accent and about where I was from and about various different things. And I was like, "Oh my God, just tell them anything. Just tell them I'll do anything." And then my agent might just put it to bed for it was like a Friday. It was like, "There's nothing more you can do. We've done everything we can do." I was like, "Right, okay." And then late that Friday night at like 8 or 9 o'clock, I get a call from my agent, and it was from his mobile number. And I was like, "Hello, how are you?" And he was like, "Yes, hello, how are you?" And I was like, "What's happening?" And he said, "You've got it. You got the part. That's an offer from Karen Pirie." And I flipped out. I completely flipped out and ran around my apartment shouting and being really excited about it. And we both agreed, it's a really big leading role. You're the name of the show, so that's a whole different thing in itself. So I was thrilled. It was amazing.
Right. So can you talk sort of about the prep? Like, did you do any ride-alongs or, like talk to real detectives? Sort of how did that go?
Yeah, so we had lots of advisors on the show. So we were able to know that everything we were doing was accurate. And the way Emer was writing it was accurate. And I kept asking if I could change things in the writing, just certain bits of dialogue that were really hard to say. And she'd be like, "No, Lauren, I've done 12 drafts. You have to do it this way. This is how you say it." And I actually so on my first week shooting, I went down to, I wasn't shooting yet, and I went down to St Andrew's Cathedral because it was this beautiful, epic location that we were on, and there was 2 police officers guarding the location just because it's a bit of a protected spot. Mm-hmm. There was one young, small, blonde woman in a full uniform, and I was like, "I need to talk to you." And I went over and spoke to her and was like, "What's it like being your height and your build and everything else and being a policewoman?" And she told me all about it and how it was like armor. It was like what she wore and really felt like a different persona. And then I said, "Great, that's so helpful to know." And I said, "Are you from around here? Are you from St Andrews?" And she said, "No, I'm from Methil." And Methil is the tiny, tiny little town that Karen is from. It's teeny, it's not a big place at all. And I was like, "Oh my God, you're the real Karen Pirie." And so we exchanged numbers, and then she sort of advised me on a few things. And I almost went off and got a ride along with her and got to see the police station. But COVID actually didn't allow it because of the public. It was kind of still COVID time. They mixed so much of the public and we were being tested. So I couldn't, but I've still got her number. We're still in touch. And I have a friend that's a policeman, and he said he'll give me a ride along. So I think I'll do that.
So I'll get it after the fact. Yeah, right, that works. And that's the other thing too. Is this like a one and done, or is there a possibility of a season 2? It's on BritBox, so I wasn't sure. It's aired over there already.
I'm not allowed to say anything, but there are many more books.
Okay.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, other than the book and the script, and I guess somewhat that woman, I guess. I was going to say, was there anywhere else you pulled from? But obviously you took some from what she told you. But was there anywhere else that you or anybody else you sort of thought about as you crafted?
Yeah, there was a big reference when I first met Emer Kenny, our writer, and we were on a Zoom call for like costume and hair and makeup and things. And I turned around to her and was like, I don't know about you, Emer, but my sort of reference, I think, to what she should look like is Gracie Lee Freebush in Miss Congeniality, pre-makeover.
Okay.
And she was like, oh my God, that's literally been a big reference for me the whole time I've been writing it. So we both sort of spoke the same language in that respect. I loved Mayor of Easttown as a reference as well, because, I mean, Kate Winslet as a character, she's a much sort of, she's a bit of a typical, like, has a bit of a drinking problem, gone through a divorce, or there's been something because her marriage has broke down, and she's then on top of that got to solve the case. Whereas Karen's a lot fresher and the beginning of her career and determined and has a lot more energy about her. But that show really balances sort of levity as well as dark. So they've got a really horrible subject matter, and we had a very horrible dark subject matter that we had to really honour and make sure we respected. But on top of that, you also have this levity that we should be allowed to laugh when situations are absurd. And when Karen sort of walks around, and like when the men stand up as she enters the room, or when the mint comes along and he's wearing a 3-piece suit to work, and she's like, what on earth is everyone doing? Why is this the way? And I love that she could be sarcastic and laugh at that sort of thing. And I think we do laugh. And I love that the show allows for an audience to be able to, and that we don't have to all just be dark and sad the whole time. I think it's just really heavy otherwise.
Right, definitely. So are you someone who's like into puzzles and mysteries and things like that? Like, do you think that you would be a good detective? Is that something that you're...
I think I'd be a sick detective. Yeah, I reckon I could do it. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and I don't know if I can be bothered with as much of that. Yeah, I'm not so much. Some of my best friends are really into jigsaws and puzzles, and they love doing them. And I love Sudoku and things, and I love me and some friends on a Sunday. They're Australian, and in Australia there's a Sunday quiz that you get in one of the papers, and we all sit and do the quiz quite often on a Sunday, and you've got to like know the facts and like be able to work it all out. So I do love stuff like that. I love games. Like I love a big board game night and things with friends. We all get a bottle of wine and do loads of board games and card games. So yes, but the responsibility perhaps of like life or death.
Yeah.
As Lauren, I'd maybe rather avoid, but I certainly love doing it as Karen.
Okay. What was the hardest part of connecting with her for you?
Good question, because I felt like I connected quite well with her. The hardest part probably is how direct she is. Like, I think she's so fearless, and I'm definitely one to break rules and to like go about other means of getting what I want. And trying to maybe manipulate situations so that I can get what I want sometimes. But she really says it how it is, and she's not got any niceties about her at all. And sometimes I thought, oh my God, like having the balls to do that is something. But I did connect with her. I knew why she was doing what she was doing. I really from the get-go felt it was so cool that we were telling a story about not just another dead body. It's not just a dead body about Rosie Duff, that she is a woman. We see her life, we see her personality. And then the whole series, you see Karen, you see it through Karen's lens. And Karen is also a young woman who knows what it means to be afraid to walk home at night, and has also been taught about what it means to have your keys between your fingers and that sort of thing. So I did feel that I connected with the show a lot. And I felt very compelled that we were telling what I felt was a very important story and relevant story and meaningful, and it actually said something, and we weren't shying away from sort of I guess the controversial nature of the police, and Karen's not the perfect policewoman, and that she recognises the things that are wrong with the police as well, which I thought was quite a cool thing to be able to say, especially in the mainstream on something like ITV and BritBox and things where you have to sometimes be quite careful.
So is there anything about yourself, though, that she taught you, or just, working on the role in general taught you?
Yeah, the same thing, the sort of direct nature of her. I really love the way that she somehow, if someone says something maybe quite inappropriate to her, or someone says something that's trying to guise as something else, and she'll outright ask them what they mean. And that'll quite often they'll have to then realise that actually what they're saying is not appropriate and what they're saying is quite rude. Or she'll just be asking straight for what she wants. I found myself starting to do that a bit more and going, let's just see what this feels like to actually just be very direct with someone and ask for what you want. I mean, even as an actor, the responsibility of doing the show and being the face of the show. And there's something quite different between just being the lead in something and then being the name of the show, and that being you. And it really is, everything is on you. You have to have sort of a certain amount of confidence to then go about and ask for what you need and what you want and not feel embarrassed or scared to do it. So I've been trying to learn a bit more about doing that and sitting in how uncomfortable it can be to do that sometimes, but necessary, and that you're not being rude, you are just being direct. But it's quite fun. It can be like afterwards you're like, oh, did it.
You talk about though being the name of the show though. Does that ever freak you out though, realizing that you're kind of like the one holding it all, and that if you
yes
drop the ball,
yes, it does.
the whole show.
It does. It freaks me out because I go, well, if people don't like it, is it going to be on me? Or if anything's asked of it, it's going to be on me. But I think we've got a great show, and I think we've got an amazing team, and I feel very confident in it. So I feel more proud than anything else. I don't feel nervous, but there is a lot of there's a lot of responsibility and weight and pressure. There is a lot of pressure, and it's in the quiet moments that it kind of gets me, that suddenly I realize that recently, like I saw there's lots of posters all over the US at the moment that have all just come out, and it's just my face everywhere, and I'm like, that's very surreal and very weird. So just getting used to that, I suppose.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's got to be very, very strange, but a good strange.
It is.
Anyway.
It is. Yeah.
So do you have like a favorite scene that you can tease without spoiling it for people who haven't seen it?
Oh, good question. I love the opening scene in when they're in the police station and Karen's that was all one big sequence we shot it as, where she walks in she goes up the lift, then once I'm up the lift, she comes in the front door to the opening of like the police unit, and the head Lise comes over to her and sort of she goes to shake his hand and he just tells her to walk, and they go and they walk down the corridor. He introduces her, it's all very fast, she's very overwhelmed, and then she's introduced to the Mint, and he's an absolutely ridiculous character that like runs over to her. And when we shot that, I could not keep it together. Chris running over, the run got bigger and bigger every time. His shoulders got more and more like in it every time. And I would piss myself laughing every time, because he's so funny to work alongside, as well as Lise as well. They both were. So I love the whole kind of sequence, and it sets them right up, and it's like this little team that's going to have to try and understand each other, get on with it.
Were there any? I guess there were probably some things that were stunts that maybe I don't realize were more actiony, I guess. Was there anything?
Yeah, lots of car stuff, lots of like driving really fast. I got to do quite a lot of that though. I'm a great driver. And I remember getting in the car and then being like, we'll get someone else to do the maneuver to begin with, so you're set up. And I was like, what is the maneuver? And they were like, it's okay, we'll get someone to do it. And I was like, what is the maneuver? And they said, it's a 3-point turn. And I was like, get out of the way. I'll go and drive the car and I'll do a 3-point turn. Absolutely fine. Oh, it's a bit of a steep hill and it's like up a rocky mountain and it's narrow. I was like, get out of the way. I can do a 3-point turn. So there was lots of and then there'd be good times for Gareth, the director. I'd drive into a scene and he'd come over and he'd be like, much faster. Can you really speed in and be quite cool with it? So I get to do fun stuff like that.
Well, that's cool. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time. Like I said, I really enjoyed it, and I hope that there's more to come.
Thank you so much.